Hi everybody. Today I'm going to do a short presentation on the fifth section of the craft of research. I'm recording this because it turns out that I have a meeting that is overscheduled with our class, and I'm afraid that I will make people late. So I've decided to record my presentation in case I'm not able to be there, in order that Dr. Axelson is able to maintain the excellent pace of this class. So the first thing I wanted to bring up before I actually get into my presentation, I wanted to show you how I organize my own thoughts on these types of presentations. I always keep my books on Kindle, which I view on my computer, and I have two computer screens. So as I'm talking, I have the book on my right-hand screen, and then I'm looking on my left-hand screen in order to continue talking with you. So my material today for my presentation follows the book very, very closely. The Craft of Research Part 5 is divided into three parts. The ethical consideration of research, a postscript for teachers, and then an appendix that talks about doing research. So the ethics of research is sort of divided into two parts, but the overall arching idea is that research is a social contract, and so there are things that we don't do. So there's the rules, and then there is the integrity, or what we should do. So there's what we can't do, and then what we should do. And both of them are equally important. I think that if you consider it a pyramid of learning, that the no-nos are on the bottom of the pyramid and the yes-yeses are further up. So we have to stick with the rules in order to, and when we're teaching students, we have to stick with the rules. But later on, I hope that we can grow into researchers who also embrace the nature of the social contract. So the rules, of course, are no plagiarism. Plagiarism is actually a theft of intellectual property, and it is rightly one of the worst things that you can do as a researcher. We also can't misrepresent the data, not present iffy data, not conceal things that don't support our worldview or the view of our research, no distorting of opposing views, and also not destroying data or concealing sources. One of the things, although a court of law is not there's not an ethical basis really, there are ethical considerations, but law is sort of a body of study unto itself. But in a court of law, when you testify, I think these are the most important things. And so I can kind of think about these in terms of a legal framework. Now, coming from a background of engineering, we have the Society of Professional Engineers in the United States has a formal code of ethics, and it basically tells you some no-nos and some things that you absolutely have to do. But distorting opposing views really indicates that you are unwilling to accept better data. And so in any research, we always have to be open to the possibility that we're going to be learning something, that the way we went into something is not necessarily the way that we're going to come out of it, and that we hope that our readers are open to change and that we are also open to change. So although I tend to be pretty post-positivist or truth is truth kind of person in terms of my background and my preferred way of thinking of the world, I think it's very important to keep in mind that even in hard science, the views that people occupy change based upon better data. So when you know better, you do better. And I think that sort of encompasses the idea of not misrepresenting, not presenting iffy data, not concealing, not distorting, and not destroying. It's being open to the fact that something better or more accurate may be available to you. So after we get through what we can't do, we want to make ethical choices, and instead of just not choosing to do the wrong thing, we also want to choose to do the right thing. And the authors talk about the idea that ethical choices build good consensus within individuals and within a community, and it really represents a conversation among equals. So some of the things that good research should do is to create a shared understanding, to make us all, reader and writer alike, open to changing our beliefs if we get better data, and to acknowledge alternative views. So as an overarching principle of this, the authors talk a little bit about integrity. And I express that once again, getting back to the whole idea of working in the legal system, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So just because you don't omit facts, or just because you don't overtly say something that is untrue, doesn't mean that your research has integrity. What we want to do is to present the best, most complete picture that we can possibly determine from what we've researched at that time. And I believe this is placing the meaning of the research above personal considerations such as time, gain, and expediency. Now, I think in classwork, this is kind of difficult because you're required, for example, to write a 15-page paper and it's due on December 1st. You have to do the best you can within that time frame. So there's a balance to be struck between the framework and what you can accomplish in that particular amount of time. But in real life, I think you may be forced to not publish what you hoped to accomplish, to accomplish something else or something less if you have a firm deadline. But integrity rules no matter what. The second section is entitled A Postscript for Teachers, and they talk a little bit about how to teach research to your students. So as current or future teachers, we have some ideas that we can think about when we're teaching students. The authors suggest, and I found this to be very meaningful, that research can be used, or it maybe is the best tool for learning how to think critically. That students doing research well will take the perspective of a community of readers, and that they'll be able to use logic to understand how key features of what they study and report influence their readers. The authors of our textbook also caution us against imposing formal rules. I think that this gets back to that sort of mixed feeling, the ambiguity that some of us have about using rubrics. Rubrics are super because it makes things concrete and students know what to expect. But sometimes it can lead to writing a paper or doing research by the numbers, and it can cause us as teachers to evaluate the form of a paper over the function or the substance of that paper. So it's not that we shouldn't use formal rules, but that we need to use them with caution, and to remember that the spirit of what we are doing is to encourage research, not to create something that looks like a research paper. So we don't want to encourage empty imitations of other people's work, something that looks and sort of seems like something that somebody else did that was really, really good. We want to encourage original thinking and critical thinking. So ultimately our goal is to teach students to use the right spirit, because the purpose of research is to answer questions that stimulate thought and create a community of thinkers. So the ultimate idea here that they talk about, which I thought was really cool, is curiosity. We want outcomes that go beyond the evaluation. We want our students to think, who are you writing for, and what is the meaning of what we're doing? A problem to be resolved is really the essence of good paper, or of a good research. If you have a question and you're curious about it and you want to answer it, that's where good research begins. And if we can carry through in that spirit despite our deadlines and despite all the other things in our life, then I think we've accomplished a great deal. So writers learn about their readers, while the readers learn about the writers, and the context-rich nature of research is really the goal of good research, especially I think in the social sciences, including education, and incorporating feedback from peers to to improve research is a big deal. I mean, we know that in the future we will be subjected to peer-reviewed journals, but in the meantime, if we can encourage our students to accept and analyze and be open to feedback from their peers, we can encourage a community of people who are ready to move forward with good research in the spirit of the problem. So as teachers, we need to build frameworks for our students. So we can't just let everything fly to the wind, embracing, we say learning is really messy, and let's embrace that, but at the same time, we sort of owe them interim and final deadlines in order for them to feel secure and to know what they need to accomplish, because they're on a journey too. And maybe we're further along the journey than them, but maybe we need to be the ones who are able to guide them through the process. So I think it's a balance between structure and spirit. And I think that's the creation of interim and final deadlines and pieces of the project while still embracing that messiness. The last piece of this section 5 in The Craft of Doing Research talks about bibliographical resources. And our authors have a bunch of things outlined for us in terms of where different types of research can be found. So I'll show that to you really briefly. But I've sort of organized this material a little bit differently. But they talk about internet databases, print and electronic resources, and you can go through and you have hot links to a bunch of different stuff. But I just broke this down a little bit differently because you have that information available to you. But in terms of bibliographical resources, when I'm doing research, I sort of have a three-pronged progress. One is Google Scholar is a really great place to start. It's a little bit more scholarly, for lack of a better word, than just regular Google. And it does summarize data from databases in a really nice way. So if you go to that website, scholar.google.com, you'll get a search bar that looks a lot like Google, although I must admit it's not as accommodating as some other features. But one thing I looked at the other day was my dissertation advisor, Andrea Burrows, had written an excellent paper with one of her doctoral students, Trina Kilty, engaging undergraduates in K-12 STEM education through high-altitude ballooning and also this secondary science perseverance pre-service, teachers' perception of engineering. So this was a very interesting article to me, and it was available to me in full through Google Scholar. So that was really a neat find. Now, so I always kind of start. One of the places I start is looking at Google Scholar. Another place I go is to library resources. And here on Northwest College campus, we have the Hinckley Library, which has an amazing library catalog. So you can do a Wildcat Advanced Search, which gives you access to everything in the state of Wyoming, or you can go to special catalogs or to the databases. So if I want to find journal articles, for example, I can go here and search through a serial locator. If I have a citation, I can browse by subjects, and none of these feel as accessible as do Google searches, but of course they're scholarly searches. So this will get you in the ballpark, but it does require more personal attention. But it's really very useful. And then my other secret weapon is our research librarian, a brilliant woman by the name of Deb Kelly, who can find things from almost no information whatsoever. So between the databases and the librarians, you can get pretty much whatever you want. The next thing, we've talked a little bit about keeping a bibliography program, and the one I use is Mendeley. So at mendeley.com, if you type that in, newsfeed comes up, but you can keep a library of all of the different things that you want to hold on to. and it will also keep you, I'm going to come over here to my library and show you, when you find articles that are interesting to you, you can save them in your Mendeley, and you can save them in some different formats. But you can see here that I have a bunch of stuff. I don't really see, I was hoping that there would be a number, but I have a bunch of stuff here that I've been studying about attrition and retention in STEM programs. So every time that I find an article that I like, I can hang on to it, I can put it into this database, and then I'm able to pull it up later on and take a look at some of the major features of that article. Now, sometimes I just keep the abstract, or sometimes I write an annotated bibliography entry. Other times I have the whole article. So it also will suggest things for you. So now that I've been working with Mendeley for a long time, sometimes they'll email me, or when I come here to my page, it will suggest articles that they think might be interesting to me. And so I can read through the abstracts, and if I like that, like this one, for example, female peer mentors early in college increase women's positive academic experience and retention in engineering. So I say, well, that's very interesting. So I can take a look at the abstract, and then if I like it, I can add that to my library. So those are just 3 tools that I like to use in order to do a little bit of research. So right now, we still have some time left. This has taken me about 16 minutes. So of the 25 minutes I've been allotted, we have about 8 or 9 minutes left for a breakout session. So I would like you to break out, or I'd like to ask Dr. Axelson to break you out into sessions of 2 or 3 and to discuss these 3 questions. What are some of the important ethical considerations in your field of study? How can we as researchers move beyond form to curiosity? And how can we build a framework to make the chaos of research manageable? And can we come to enjoy the process? Right now, I'm not feeling the love. I got a bunch of papers that are due and a bunch of deadlines that I'm working under, but I try to embrace the chaos, and I hope to get better at that as time goes on. So that's it for my presentation, classmates. Thank you for your attention. Happy breakout session, and I hope to join you soon.